we have 2 distinct wet seasons in Jamaica, October and May, and our drier months are from January to July. It was our traditional thing. This was the norm, but all of this have changed. So drought, as we know before, mentioned a deficiency in rainfall. And the beginning of this year, the government said that we had a meteorological drought, where a lot of people were wondering, what does that mean? And the meaning of it was that we're going to have well below the normal of rainfall. So let's look at what happened over the last 12 months from October 2022 to 23. Every month except June had less rainfall than the previous year. And it was also, we have less, when you look at the 30-year mean average rain for the last 30 years, this year has been one of the lowest. And let me just tell you how hot it gets. July to August, the highest record temperature we have in Jamaica was in 2019, where it was 39.1. And we had temperatures reaching up there this year. And we have 50 to 20 heat wave days through the end of August, where people were burning. Now look at the impact. So I just draw one of our watershed, which is a Coptic country, where some of you guys might hear different environmentalists talking about this area, which is biodiversity. And it is said to produce 40% of the island's drinking water. However, development and cutting down of trees and all of that, and when people go and cut down the forest, and stuff like grass returns to the area, during the dry season, the grass dries up and it becomes fire hazard in our watersheds. We don't know what the impact is having on our biodiversity. Anecdotally, we had members like from the bird group telling us that they had to provide water for some of our birds and some of the animals. We have endemic species here that are very dependent on humidity and rainfall. And we need more studies to know what the impact of this drought had on them. Now, one of the things that we find out that happening, so our elevation moved from 0 to approximately, I'm trying to remember if it's 4,200 meters. So the elevation changes, and what normally used to occur is that with elevation, there is a temperature change, and stuff like mosquitoes couldn't be found in certain elevation. Now, when the place get dry, as a result of climate change, we have a shift of invasive moving up. And invasive, like the mosquito, Aedes aegypti, where we know a number of the Caribbean islands having dengue. So one of the things that occurred with the drought period was that some places get hotter, the mosquitoes moved up. And another thing that happened is because people were storing a lot of water, you know, they didn't have much potable water, so they're using tanks, so they provided breeding sites for the mosquitoes. And we also have new introduced species like the introduced Cuban tree frog, which are breeding in some of these stored areas, and we don't know what the impact it's having on the water quality. Now, what the drought did, it disrupt our normal quality of life. So in Jamaica, you know, tourism is one thing. We like to go to the beach. I have a friend right there at the bath at the springs getting her mud bath before she goes in the hot springs. We have in rural areas where people still use water to bathe, to wash their plates, and to wash their clothes. And we also have a number of stakeholders that get, this here is what we call busu in Jamaica. It is a freshwater snail that the people catch in the river. We have here freshwater shrimp and fish. All of this were affected in the drought period because the water level dropped. So it affected people's livelihoods. It affected daily activities. Now here is interesting, I'm showing you, we had this river, the Somerset Falls, to your left. It was a beautiful waterfall during the drought period. There was no water. So people couldn't go in it and bathe, and we couldn't have some of the other recreational activities. Now this has become the new norm. I live in Kingston, and in some areas this is the new norm. In my apartment, we did not have tanks because we normally get from the portable water. But this year we had water restrictions that they will tell you that you will get water from 6 p.m. to about 4 p.m. and then the other people will get from 4 p.m. to 6 a.m. But most time the water company did not keep the time regulation. Water come and go. So you had to change your lifestyle to fit it. So because of that, you have to get used to bathing in that bucket. Some people who can afford it got tanks, and some people use these drums. Now, one of the things that I want to bring out, when we think about climate change, sometimes we forget about the rural people. Now, potable water is not access to some rural people here. And this tank that you see in the video here, the people are totally dependent on tanks like this. So what the farmer does is they use that water to give to their crop, and they also just drink from it. And you find insects and stuff living in it. And during the drought period, when the water level gets very low, then you got algae and all sorts of other organisms growing in it, which becomes a problem in terms of water quality. We also had like animals, farm animals, because it was so hot as a result of the drought, limitation of water, and got so hot still it start falling down. So farmers now have to be giving them ice to keep them cool. Now, what happened during the drought is that you spend so much money in terms of insecticide and pesticide to grow the crops. And the pests are out there. So what happened is the farmers use these pesticides, and some of these pesticides, they spray like the cabbage every week. Some of it is every 3 days. And you can imagine what is the impact it will be having on the people who consume it, or even the farmers who are spraying these things for like every 3 days until the crop is ready. We also have here that we call ticks. When the time gets very dry on the drought, this is what they call tick season in Jamaica, and it lasts much longer. And what the farmers are doing is using insecticides that are not supposed to get on humans to spray, because they can't afford to buy the normal insecticide like off, and you know it. Now, I'm showing you, this is a video that was done in one of the rural areas, and this guy planted a field of potato. All of the potato died. Everything died because of the drought conditions. Move on. So now we had an increase in forest fires, and this is an area in Upper St. Andrew called Jacks Hill, which is pretty near to Kingston. And what happened yearly is that during the dry season, the hill catch a fire. And one of the things that we noticed is that because people have removed the natural vegetation, a lot of invasive like grass, acacia, are the vegetation on these hills. When the rain falls, the place look green and that. However, during the dry season, it dries up, and it's the perfect, or I should say perfect for fires. So we have to find a way of putting back the native plants. Now, when we look at our water infrastructure, I got this information from the Prime Minister, who said most of our infrastructure in Kingston, which is the city that I lived in, are more than 40 years old. We have 2 reservoirs. One is the Hermitage Dam, which is about 80-year-old, and the Mona Reservoir, which is 1940. Now, during the drought, these reservoirs weren't receiving any water. So some people are saying build more reservoir, but if you don't have proper watersheds, if you are developing the watershed, if you are cutting down the trees, then you won't have enough water coming to these water storage. And one thing in Jamaica is that everybody wants to find a solution for the drought during the drought season, but as soon as the rain comes, everybody forgets about it. Now, to summarize all what I've said, is that we have a lot of work to do. And this drought season that we had this year has been pretty bad, because no people's eyes are open, because when it normally affects the rural people, some people are like, okay, it doesn't affect me. No, it's affecting them. And they see now that we have to find long-term solutions in terms of water storage, in terms of what we do with water collection.